All cameras rolling?
Yep.
Cool. All right.
Back.
We're back again. Had some feedback.
We have.
Yes.
And we've chosen a good topic for today, which is going to be pumping.
Oh, yes.
Probably the most important thing in foiling. It's really the thing that makes it different to surfing, which is good because otherwise we'd just be surfing V2. So
I mean,
we're going to talk all about pumping.
Who wants to start?
Should I start?
Yeah, you go for it. You send it.
Where should we start?
Oh, yeah. Can I start?
Yep, you
Okay.
start.
All right.
Well, let's just start with basics. Front and back foot pressure, obviously.
Yep.
All right. It changes with where you put the foil on your track. So,
Yeah.
So you put it all the way at the front. I feel like you get more lift. So you have less front foot pressure.
More front foot pressure.
More front foot pressure.
Yeah.
And so yeah, either you lean forward or more front foot pressure. Where do you guys put your foils on your tracks?
So for me, on lift, mine's all the way at the front. And that's probably only for the Sonova boards because the tracks are quite far back. But for me, I find that, I think it's kind of talking about where you put your foil. It's super important to have equal pressure when you're just standing still on both your feet, or very similar pressures on both your feet. Max,
Yeah.
where do you chuck yours?
Well, I ride the Axis 999, so it's a big wing for my size. I weigh like 65 kilos, so pretty light guy, pretty small. But like, there's a lot of early lift, so I want to have it as far back as possible. So it like gets so much early lift, and it's pretty much uncontrollable once I'm not on my feet. But when I'm on my feet, I feel like I'm really far forward, so I need to put it as far back as possible to get more back foot pressure. Otherwise, it's a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, well, mine's changed because I've had two major wings. I had the 1550 V1 when I first started, and then I had that pretty central on the tracks, I'd say, because it changed. I changed from Sonova board to the board I made, and my tracks sort of changed spots. Not really, but I kept it pretty similar where it was on the tracks. I had the 1550 in the middle, but now I've changed to 925, and the stall speed's a lot higher than it was on the 1550. So I've now changed to the very front of my tracks, just because I don't get that same lift, and with that, pumping's changed obviously.
Yeah. Okay, I guess talking about the positioning, I actually wrote up a little bit of something which I would like to call maybe this segment, the science of foiling.
All right.
And we can call it the science of foiling by Hugh Mitchell, who has done some year 12 physics. So I do have a little bit of knowledge on maybe some stuff, whatever you want to think. But maybe not the science of foiling. Science of foiling and how I think this can help you pump.
All right.
And if you guys want to chip in anywhere, just let me know.
No worries.
So actually, I did a bit of research.
Oh.
Got the Britannica definition of what a foil is.
Oh,
So it's a underwater fin with a flat or curved wing-like surface that is designed to lift a moving boat or ship. In this case, a foil board, obviously, not a boat or ship. And actually, I heard another good thing that said, like, what an actual wing is something that has more lift, creates more lift than it has drag, which I guess is quite important because that's what it's doing. It's lifting you out of the water without slowing you down. So then, like, thinking about this, in year 12 physics and other times, I've heard pretty much two descriptions of how a foil works. First one is they say that the water going over the top of the foil flows faster because of that curved surface than underneath.
Yeah.
And because it's flowing faster, lower pressure. So the foil moves from the high pressure below to the lower pressure above, and that creates lift.
Yeah. Aeroplane time things.
Yeah, so when you're thinking about that, like, I guess the faster you're moving, the more lift it's going to create because the pressure difference between the two plates is the top and the bottom is going to be bigger.
Yeah. Well, I have a story about going fast. just chipping in here. Earlier this week, I went foiling Engine Up Bay, and I probably shouldn't have whipped the foil out. It was definitely a surfable wave, and it was just sort of breaking, and then breaking like A-framing, and then all closing out in the inside section. And I've gotten a wave which it was a bit bigger than I thought it was at the time, and I've got up and I was like, oh no, I'm right. And then there's two other surfers up, and I sort of just whatever. They go their way, I'll go mine. And then all of a sudden I just started pissing down the line, I reached Mach 10 going down the line, and then I've was out of balance. I would have looked like an absolute nut. I was off balance, and then I've reached the inside section where it's all just going to shut straight on the dry sand, and I've tried to pull off. As I've done that, I've just increased the speed. I'm still more. Yeah, and and I've gone straight over the falls, and I've just landed straight. It was only about like 2 feet deep. Landed straight on the sand, and this was like it was still, because it was like a sandbar, so it was still pretty far away from the beach, and I've popped up and my foil's still going. It just snaps the leg rope like clean. Yeah. And it's just kept going. And I've like popped up the other side. I'm looking at it. I'm like, it's going.
Oh no.
So yeah, that's it.
Don't get too much speed. You get too much lift and it just keeps getting faster and faster.
Well, we were at Honeycombs the other day. It was like pretty chill. It was like a A-frame sort of wave, and then it peeled left or right, which we were sitting on the inside right. And if you didn't hop off, there was like this sandbank. So you had to hop off pretty quickly, and like I just went like, I don't know why, but my feet weren't in the right position, so I was trying to turn like right, and it was just making me turn left, and then I went like head first into the shallow section and just died so hard. And my foil, like, I was surprised it didn't break, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right,
I heard. Sorry. I heard you broke another foil, or your dad broke.
Oh, my dad broke another foil. Okay, this is actually quite an interesting story, and it's so my dad's got the 930 Axis, which is actually quite a popular wing for probably slightly heavier guys in winging, and we were on the boat. He was winging off the boat, and we were parked up in a not the greatest spot, and Mum convinced Dad that he should move spots, and so Dad started the engine of the boat while his board was sitting in the water behind the back, and it slipped around, and the propeller of the boat has just absolutely munched the side of the wing. And then, like, obviously pretty damaged wing, he couldn't use that for a couple of days, but he came home certain he could fix it. I wasn't so sure.
Determined.
But he actually, like, just using fiberglass, he's actually put it together and it was actually looking really good. Like, honestly, as good as it was beforehand, maybe not quite as strong. And then the other day he went winging out at Yelling Up Main, and as he was coming in, our dog Lakey swam out towards him. So he's dealing with his wing, the shore dump at Yelling Up, and his board as our dog was swimming out to him. And a set came as he was sitting there, and instead of sacrificing the dog, he sacrificed his board and snapped the foil in half.
He snapped the like front wing, or
the front wing gone.
Oh no! Did he find the other section, or like did he find?
No, you can't. No, it wasn't like in two pieces, but it was fully snapped. Yeah, snapped clean through.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't mix dogs, waves, and foils.
Oh wait, if we're mixing dogs and waves.
Oh yeah.
Lakey also. This is probably a week before that story. Lakey's on the paddleboard out surfing.
That was cute.
That was. I'm sure there's a photo somewhere. We'll whack it up.
Story.
We'll bring up a photo of you. Yeah.
No one really cares, but you know.
Probably go back to it.
Yeah. Should we go back to
technique?
Pumping technique, seeing as was probably what we're going to call this video.
Yeah.
All right. So, said the first way, different pressures above and below the foil. Second way, which is probably how I prefer to think about it, is the curved surface of the foil. Because of that, like, low pressure, it gets sucked. The water gets sucked onto the top of the foil, and then as it comes down the back of the foil, it gets pushed down. And so the water's getting pushed down. Because the water's being pushed down, you're being pushed up.
Yeah.
And that's more how I prefer to think about how, like, a foil works, because I think it gives you a better understanding of how you can potentially improve your pumping technique so you can pump more efficiently.
Definitely.
Actually, this is interesting because if you think about it that way, one of the tips which I've heard so many talk about pumping is get the mast high.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, if you're getting your mast high above the water, and the difference is the low and high pressure, with less water above the foil, there's going to be a lower pressure, so you're going to get more lift, making your foil more efficient.
I'm not too sure about, I guess it's about pressure, but would surface water be a bit,
yeah, potentially is
less, I don't know
smooth.
the word. Yes, I don't know how to say it. Like less dense, but it doesn't really sound right. It's
turmoil.
It's like more stagnant.
Yeah,
I guess if
turbulence.
Turbulence. Yeah,
that's the word. Which probably makes it harder.
Yeah. Well, definitely. I know of a 925. Definitely that. You need the mast high, otherwise it will just the stall speed. You'll get too slow and you'll just eat it. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So,
and I've got another thing about pumping.
Yeah.
Definitely when I started pumping, I don't know if a lot of people do it, but I definitely do. When I pumped, I was sort of tweaking it when I was pumping, so more like that type of thing instead of like just straight up and down. And I definitely think that once you get past that, sort of like when you're tweaking, turning a bit that nose, you can just get so much more speed than, because you're putting it like off balance, you're putting yourself off balance and making it just that much harder for yourself. But once you get that clean motion, it's all about technique. Once you get your technique down,
you also need to like read sort of, if it's like the water's turbulent and there's like windy, a little bit of chop, it's not like as smooth. You need to like sort of read the waves a little bit and like read when you put pressure into that front foot pump, because like if you pump onto a swell that's coming at you, it just gives you a lot of awkward lift, because you want to be going sort of down the face and not sort of like into it. If you pump into it, it just like it cooks your whole sort of pumping motion, and then it just like your efficiency's lost, and then you sort of lose speed, and then can get a little off track.
Max, what would your technique be, or like what would you suggest to someone? They're pumping out, they're going towards a wave. It's not like it's not breaking, but it's just like a lump of water.
They have to go over it.
Yeah, what's your technique for going over the wave?
I don't know, just stay high on your mast, I guess, and then as you're going over, if you have a shorter mast and you're going over a pretty decent sized swell, don't pump over it, try to avoid that, sort of just ride over it, and then keep your mast as high as possible until you're on the other side, and then you want to be putting a lot of front foot pressure so you don't pop out of the other side, because obviously if you just keep going in a straight line, you've got to pop out. So just a lot of front foot pressure, keep that foil down, and then just keep on pumping, I guess.
Well, I definitely think a lot of people, when you see like, or not beginners, but like when you first start learning how to foil and you're going back out after catching a wave, and you're pumping out, and people try and keep the mast as high as they can when they're going over the waves. I definitely reckon you can keep the mast high just before you get to the wave, and then no matter, like, as long as your board's going to still be above the water, if you just, like, your mast can get cut from this far out of the water to about this far out of the water, but as long as you make it over that swell without your board like bottoming out or you breaching because you're going too high, like, you can get through it pretty easily.
One other thing I find, which like is almost, think of a little bit counterintuitive, sometimes like you're pumping along pretty fast, you look at this wave and it really does feel like your mast is just going to get boosted out of the water. I find it gets boosted out a bit less than you'd expect, which is probably a good thing.
Definitely. Yeah, it handles that oncoming
wave
power, energy
better than you think as a beginner, I reckon.
Well, that probably also depends on what wings and everything, equipment, and you know, we can get in depth for that. We can talk about that for an hour, but but
maybe we should. Okay. Well, I think I started learning first. First place I learned was on the wing.
Yeah.
And on a really big board. So to begin with, I practically did no pumping because I had this big board, this big foil that pretty much didn't let me pump so much.
Yeah.
But from there, we kind of moved to surf foiling. Still had a pretty big board, but it was smaller. And I just remember the first challenge that I faced with pumping on the board was actually kicking off the wave and going back out.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about, what do you have a technique for that?
Just on your topic of like learning,
yeah,
I reckon it is, if you buy a foil setup with a wing, as you see behind Hugh and me, it's probably one of the better places to start to learn, because it's the easiest way to get up on a foil, given that you have that wind power and a bit of familiarity with sort of wind and what it's doing. It's because it gives you that propulsion, that momentum that you need to pump the board, whereas dock starting and prone foiling, it's a pretty specific set of skills. Like to pop up like prone surfing and dock foiling, it's like really hard and takes a lot of time, but anyone can pretty easily just go out on a 100 litre plus board with a wing and just get the sort of momentum they need to get the foil up and running. And from there, you can just learn, get a feel for the pump, especially on flat water. You don't want to be doing this in like the ocean with a lot of turbulence and a lot of wind chop and swells that will sort of put you off. So just go in a quiet flat water area and then get the wing going, get the foil up, and then just start trying to pump.
Well, with that learning how to do the whole thing with your wing, I saw an article this week about a 71-year-old lady who's learned how to foil with the wing. I think
Anne, right?
And yeah, and that's you. Well, I mean, yeah. How cool is that?
It's really cool.
So she's just said, I didn't actually read the whole thing, but like the basics of it was that she just started doing it, bought a setup and bought a wing, and like she can do it. So like I can't do it, but most people I'm sure can.
And it's one thing that's great about winging is it's so like it doesn't have to be hard on your body at all. Like, you can go out for a wing session and take it chill and not have any chance of, like, as long as you're not falling on the foil, it's not a high impact sport. It's not like footy or hockey or soccer or anything like that. It's much more gentle, even more gentle than surfing.
Yeah, well, it's definitely, with a wing, it's definitely more gentle than dock foiling, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like, because you two, maybe, I'm not too sure about Max, but Hugh, definitely, well, back to starting how to pump. I pretty much went straight from dock foiling, to dock foiling. And that's, I think, I'm not too sure. I think surfing, but prone foiling is easier than dock foiling.
For learning how to pump, I think, But you got to get the pop-up.
The pop-up, that's the thing. But I'm just saying, proning is probably one of the hardest types of foiling. Not proning. Dock foiling is probably one of the hardest types of foiling, just because getting that first amount of speed, so you reach your stall speed, so you can start going. And I definitely reckon starting by doing that and like putting yourself through failing, and then eventually starting to get your pumping technique better and better, then going and switching to winging or proning. It's definitely a lot easier than just going straight to them.
Just back to sort of learning how to pump with the wing.
Max, could I just add one thing before we go back to the wing? I think the one thing that's easier than the wing is behind the boat. Would you guys agree with that?
We don't have to any work.
Yeah, sorry. If you're gonna start to learn how to pump, to learn to foil behind the boat, and then, but the one thing I find restrictive about behind the boat is you can only go one way, and then all of a sudden you get this like the jerk, which is also good about the wing because you don't get that.
Well, you also got, just quickly, about behind the boat, then you also have to figure out the technique of starting in the water, because we have a mate that we went behind the boat and he just could not figure out how to do because you guys both start by standing on the board in the water and then just
but I reckon the easiest thing, if you're learning how to foil, you wouldn't be going to a 35 litre prone board. You'd be on a 100 litre plus up, standing with the rope in hand
already,
boat towing you, and then getting the speed.
Just get a feel for it like that.
Think about that.
And the one thing that's hard with the boat is the turbulent water that kicks up behind you.
Avoid the center.
As soon as you get up, try going left or right, just anywhere to get away from that turbulence, because it's not what a foil should feel like. It's just water's moving all over the place, and a lot less control.
Well,
getting over the weight can be a little bit tricky.
As
well, but you sort of just have to do it because it's way easier once you're on the outside.
And those starting sort of exercises behind the boat or on a wing are a good place to learn, like, I guess, the cadence of wings as well, like what sort of rate you need to pump the wing at to keep it going, because I know the 925 and the 120, really high cadence, really high stall speed, so you need a really short interval to sort of pump them.
Well, I got a video about that. We'll whip it up. And there's JB or James Bennett on the old 1550 and me on the other side on the 925. And you can see almost instantly when we take off, James has gone straight up, JB's gone straight up, and he has the lift. And you see me go poof, and you just keep dropping, just because that stall speed on the 925 is a lot higher. And then we both reach a point where you get to like a optimum speed, and then a weight comes, we both go up and then just both eat it. And you'll see the video, but so you can just see how different wings need different like speeds and whatnot.
So like before you start actually trying to get your pump technique, I think there's like a couple stuff you want to suss out. I think Max has sort of said this, like things you want to work out, the cadence of like how you're going to pump it. So when you say cadence, Max, that's like the speed,
the rate at which you sort of pump your foil, or like the front foot pressure, I guess, something.
And then Noah said the stall speed, so you want to work out what is the stall speed of this foil, how slow can I go and still be pumping. And then I guess from there you probably want to just get your balance right, like Noah's already said. Make sure when you're pumping, you're moving in a straight line, not like
so you also want to find out where the foil fits best in your tracks.
Sweet spot is
that's also
get your feet
and feet. And you get then feet positioning. Oh my god,
feet positioning.
Then feet positioning on the board. Because some people have wide stance, some people have really narrow stance. I know you have quite a narrow stance.
I like a narrow stance for pumping, but
depends.
So then, and I think I also said this before. Equal weight on 2 feet before you start pumping. Wait, so what have we got? This feels like...
So you got...
Slow down. Max, you want to run through the things...
We'll list them out.
You had a good list going. You started.
I'll start it. Should we do one each? Okay. Equal pressure on the feet.
You go.
Yeah, alright. I'd say yeah, just figure out where the foil fits best in your tracks.
Yeah.
Is it cadence?
Yeah.
Cadence of how fast you want to pump.
Cadence. Then what do we say? Maybe we should replay that. Balance, like left and right balance. So make sure you're going in straight line motion. Yeah.
Yeah. That's about it, really.
That's about it.
Stall speed.
Stall speed, sorry.
Stall speed, yeah.
5 things. We'll write them on the screen.
I think that was 6, was it?
We'll write them on the screen.
They're there.
Okay.
Feet
Someone
positioning.
want to...
Wide, narrow or wide stance, feet positioning versus which because definitely you see a lot of foilers who dock start have a stance sort of which isn't straight like this, it's like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I definitely reckon that's better for
carving, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know, but then I feel like definitely when you're prone foiling, if you have a pretty strong like right like the
surfing stance.
Yeah, surfing stance. It's I reckon it's easier, but
I feel like just going back to that sort of cross stance where one foot's on the right, usually, I don't know, whatever stance you are, usually your front foot's far left and then your back foot's far right. I feel like that sort of helps you learn how to keep an even pressure on your feet.
Yeah.
Because if you do have too much front foot pressure or back foot pressure, your foil will lean one way and then you'll just fall off and stack it.
Evens out.
And it's also helpful in like prioritizing like turns, I guess. It helps you sort of get the idea of what.
Yeah. Well,
how
also
to shift your
with
weight.
Back to like what I said at the start with pumping, and you sort of pump like this. I definitely, if you think of your feet are sort of like on a diagonal or not like in a straight line, you can't really do that. It's sort of just because it evens out through the middle of the board.
Yeah. So if you've got your feet in the middle, like you're saying straight through the middle.
No. So if you have
then that it's kind of stops that twisting problem. Is that so? Yeah. So I think, for pumping, I reckon it's easy to have your feet like surfing, just both in the center of the board, like width-wise. Yeah.
And to be honest, you could probably generalize everything about shoulder width.
Yeah.
If you want, and if you're going I feel like the quicker you go, the somewhat smaller you could go. It'd be to an extent.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Okay, I guess so we've got all the basics. You're ready to pump. What do you do next? What's your first thing that you do on your pump?
Oh, well, no, before you pump, you have to turn around off the wave, if we're talking about prone foiling.
I mean, if you've learned how to pump and you're like psyched, you probably don't want to be doing it winging, like it's kind of useless. You already have the wind power.
Yeah.
You can ride wind chops. You either want to be going behind a boat or prone foiling and wrapping out onto another wave out the back.
Okay, let's just imagine you've caught a wave. You've come off that fast section at Dutch Inns, and the wave's faded out to absolutely nothing, and now you're going to pump into the beach so you can get in.
I'm imagining it.
What's your first action you're doing to pump? Like, what are you thinking? What are your legs going to do?
Well,
what are your arms going to do?
So are we still on the wave?
So but the wave's died out. There's no wave. You just got to pump yourself.
So you still have the speed from the wave.
Yeah.
And I put front foot pressure first, and then drop down, and then go back up, and then continue obviously. But I don't know how many people go. I wouldn't think you go back foot first.
I think you have to go front foot, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the motion that you're doing is nose down. You kind of dive down and then
come
back up. A bit like a bird flapping its wings. Is a nice way to think of it.
Or a 28 parrot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know how they flap and then they drop and then they flap. And then yeah.
Maybe we should get a video of that.
We could, yeah.
Ain't gonna happen.
Right.
But just when you're turning off the wave, like you're at Dutchies.
Yep.
You're on a pretty sick swell. It fades. Say you're on the left shoulder. So you're coming around, you turn north to go back out, you know what I mean?
I'm sure we have clips of us going north.
Yeah, we'll have a...
And you're going left, and how do you keep that speed while turning to go back out to catch another wave?
Yeah, so what I do is I just keep high in my mast, turn out. I don't pump when I'm on the wave.
Definitely, that's actually one really good tip.
Yeah.
As you're turning off the wave, don't worry about pumping until you're off it.
Just remember, keep a high mast and try whilst keeping the foil in the water, because it's really quite an awkward feeling turning sideways into a swell. But once you're facing back out, you can start the pump.
Yeah. Well, I definitely reckon when I was on the 925, I sort of do a much bigger now wrap and try and stay reasonably straight the whole way around, versus when I was on my 1550, like I could just pop up and then just pretty much turn on the spot and go back out.
Yeah.
Just because that stall speed doesn't have to be high at all. You can just
So I think
pretty much like have no speed and turn versus just like if you keep your speed when you turn off a wave,
the more speed you have.
If you're off, okay, let's go back. If you're off the left shoulder of Dutch ins, I reckon, and you sort of like lean the entire thing, and you try not to breach your right tip.
Yeah.
Then if you keep it, if you need to find the sweet spot. You need to find the sweet spot of where you're turning out, and and to hold that speed.
So you've kind of like got a nice lot of speed. You're turning off, and you want to maintain as much as you got, and then you start pumping.
It also helps to know the length of your foil
And your mast.
or sort of like the wingspan. Because I'm on a 999, really high wingspan, and sometimes if I turn left too hard, I breach the tip, like almost always, and it's like pretty difficult to recover from that if you're not well balanced and your footing is off. So just know you can't turn too hard if you have a really high wingspan foil.
Well, then we could just go into aspect ratio and all that then from there.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised that, is that the first time aspect ratio has been said?
I
was thinking
I should have done it.
I think it was funny. I was like,
I was waiting for backs.
Okay.
I was thinking gonna have like an aspect ratio counter on this one, and it would end up being like 120 or something. That's good. That's the first one.
I cannot believe I started.
Okay, so turned off the wave. You're now pumping. You've gone front foot, back foot, and you got the mast up nice and high. One thing I think people make a mistake of is when they're learning, they get so scared of popping the foil out, like out the top, that they might do 100 attempts, or not 100, that's a bit, like 20 pumping, learning to pump, and every single time their boards come down, they've lost their speed and then just bottomed out. And none of those times have their foil popped out the top.
Not even close.
Because I reckon like it's actually a great learning experience, popping your foil out and going, hey, that's how long my mast is. Don't go higher than that. Sit as close to that as possible.
Well, I know you change mast somewhat regularly.
Yeah.
Because you go between the 80 and the 72.
So it's like goes from like a 75 to like an 82. I think.
Yeah, right. So then definitely, how do you exactly. How do you change how do you like figure out how much more you have versus and switch back and forth?
So I think I actually am not so great at doing that. My brain is very much set at a 75 mast. And when I'm pumping on my 75 mast, I can, like, sometimes I hear my back wing, like, literally scraping the top of the water, and you can feel it. And then that's like, I know I'm pumping well because I'm sitting right at the top. But I go to my 82, I can't get it that high.
No.
But it doesn't feel as efficient pumping the 82.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely better to fail foiling, like fail breaching, than fail sort of petering out with enough speed.
Without just losing all your speed.
It's like that tennis analogy or whatever. Bring it back to tennis. Love me some tennis. But, you know, like it's
Australian
better
Open happening right now.
Yeah. It's better to hit the ball long than it is into the net.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So always, You know that one? Surely you've heard that.
I don't know that one. I played a lot of tennis.
Maybe I
actually haven't
tennis.
I know that. Wait, it's better to hit it long than into net.
Yeah.
Well, that's just
All the time.
dumb.
It's not dumb.
Because if you hit it like at the very top of the net, and then you're like, oh, okay, so my top spin has to be a little bit less than what I did.
It's a good analogy, Noah. Let's just
alright.
Right. You need to do both. You need to fail both ways.
Stop hating on my analogies.
So
you need to fail both ways, obviously. Sorry. That's just
Alright.
You need to fail both ways, but I feel like people don't fail enough from the going too high. Because that happens a lot when you're on the waves, but not so much when you're pumping out.
Who thought of that analogy? That analogy is so bad.
It's not bad.
It's legit.
Alright.
Mate, I'll play in a game of tennis. I'll prove it to you.
So you're going to be hitting them out the back?
What?
You're going to be hitting them out the back?
No, I'll
prove
beat you.
Alright, anyway.
Okay, we're going to make a new podcast. The tennis podcast project. No. Alright. Can I bring it back to like the action and how I think it relates to science? Because I feel like, or not science, but just like how you can think about it. So like we obviously got that kind of gull-wing action. How I like to think about it is you're kind of letting the foil run down a hill like you're on a wave. Because when you're on a wave, you're essentially just always running downhill. So your pumping action is you're letting it run downhill and then you're kicking it back up again and letting it run downhill again.
Well, have you ever played that game, like when you were a kid, that penguin game, where you slide over the hills and then...
Oh, yeah.
release, you hold it and
Oh,
slide.
that slaps.
That's-
Play one of those
that's
games.
one of those, yeah. And then
Honestly, play one of those games and just get a.
it's just it's,
Honestly,
it's
heard it
how-
here first. New
it's,
tip.
It's
how to
how you.
pump.
It's how hard you hold. It's how long you hold your finger.
Yeah.
I think is how much it drops and
Yeah.
releases. Yeah.
and then holding your finger is front foot pressure, taking it off is back foot
That's
pressure.
an analogy, Max. That's an analogy.
That's a
yeah,
good one.
well, not as good.
That's elite.
It's good.
It's not as
Download
good as-
whatever. We'll put it up. Download
I'll find
it.
it.
So we're thinking. So
Yeah. So
we've
that,
got-
how much you hold the down, and definitely you see better foilers can hold it for longer, and then just before they're about to
Yeah.
reach, they just pump back up. They
'Cause
go back up, and then they just get that heaps of that lift. They get
Yeah.
that heaps of lift, and that's also with that video that's happened this week as well, with the guy that's done the dock start backflip.
Oh yeah, if you guys haven't seen that
That
video,
is-
I would be surprised if anyone's watching this hasn't seen this
that.
video.
That is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
But-
that's insane. Yeah.
What are your different pumping techniques?
That's a good lead on. Well, I reckon definitely go if you haven't got a whole lot of speed, start going deep. You go deep and you really try and get that drive as you come up, and then once you have that speed, then you go smaller and you keep building. And when you have small pumps, it holds the speed, but then keeps building a little bit, bit.
Yeah.
Versus those big ones, which just gives that initial.
And like True Surf, you can design different locations like as you progress.
Are we?
So
we're
like-
still talking about the app.
N-
No, we're not talking about the app. We're just talking
That's
about.
what we're talking about the app.
No, Max. We've gone back. What are your different pumping
Sounds
techniques?
very similar to that.
We've moved.
Oh yeah.
We've moved past the app.
We're pumping
Alright.
techniques foiling. Max.
Yeah.
Okay. What are your
I'm
different?
on the same page, right?
So-
I was downloading Penguin Race. Give me a break.
Okay. So Noah, you've done your those deep pumps. What percentage effort? Like that's like 100% effort, right?
Or, yeah. Well,
Close to 100%.
Yeah, 80 to 100% effort. And the small ones, like you get to like the 20 to 50% effort.
Yeah.
When you're just like that's when you're keeping your mast really high out of the water
And that's when you're efficient.
and you're the most efficient. Yep.
Yeah. So cool.
Mm. And I'm sure it changes with wings and all that.
Yeah.
And the aspect ratio. But,
All right. So we've done pumping. We've talked about. With those different techniques. Like I kind of like to. I feel like we should try to find things a bit better. So you sort of got when you have no speed, you got that big deep pumps.
mm.
And then
Should we name them? Should we name
Yeah.
what's a big deep pump? What's a good name for that?
No, you're the one who came up with this naming system. We can call it the big pumps.
The biggie.
No, we cannot call it the biggie. All right, it's a big deep pump. That's what we call it. It's
then
a deep. Let's just call it deep.
BDP.
Oh,
Okay, so you got the
Acronym.
So that gets you speed, and then you want to, then you get to like accelerate, and
So
you kind
you
of go
get your acceleration
you got
pumps.
acceleration pumps.
yeah. Let's just say the first one's your initial acceleration pumps.
Yeah,
Make
and then
just as long as the other name.
stage 2 acceleration pumps,
Yeah,
which
and
are like not quite as big, and then when you're up to speed, you should be doing your nice little efficient pumps.
Efficient pumps. Yeah.
Efficient
That's-
pumps.
yeah. So there's acceleration, then acceleration pumps, then phase 2 acceleration pumps, and then there's your efficiency pump.
Yeah,
Efficient pumps.
and then gliding.
Then
Where you
Yeah.
just stop pumping
That's
to slow down. I don't know why you'd ever want to slow down, but
No, gliding when you're on a wave. Something like
yeah, spot on. Okay, so now we're on to turning onto waves, because like you're pumping back out.
that. Oh, yep, and you've reached that.
How are you turning onto a wave?
Well, if you've turned off the wave to get back out, it's pretty much the same concept, except you pick up a little more speed, obviously, because you're
I
lapping
remember-
onto a wave instead of
Well, I
off.
definitely reckon that turning off a wave. I definitely reckon turning off a wave, you can do definitely a bit more wide out turn. While turning onto a wave, it's more like a snappy type, like
reckon?
like more tight.
Doesn't have to be though.
But how would you learn how to do it? Because obviously that's
Well,
like,
it depends on the wave as well. Because if it's like Dutch ins, I definitely feel like Dutch ins, you can't do like a massive big thing, then start going
'cause it
right
goes-
if you're off the left, because then there's either other people on it or it goes into that shallow reef section.
okay.
Yeah. Also, you want to turn earlier than you think if
Yes.
you're
Mm.
beginning, because
That's
swells
that's a top
move
tip.
pretty fast,
And
by
you're
the
moving
time-
towards it as well.
Yeah,
so-
you're moving towards it. You're
Yeah.
not. So like, velocity is greater than the wave itself.
Mm.
So you want to be turning like a decent amount time before. Like even if you turn too early,
And you
it's
can
not
just
a big
keep
deal,
pumping.
because you can pump sideways and then wait till the wind, till the swell reaches you, and then
Yeah.
ride it. But you definitely don't want to be waiting too late. Like if you're turning at the bottom of the wave,
It's probably
unless
too
you
late.
do a like
Unless you're-
insane snap and you're like super progressed and you want to be wrapping early.
Yeah.
That's the takeaway.
And then I think as you progress better and better,
You can go later and later.
later and later,
And
looks
the
cool.
sharper and the sharper you can go. Because there was that guy that was out there doing the 360s without straps. Remember that time?
That was cool.
And he was doing, but he was doing really sharp turns. Because
Yeah.
on that, was he on Armstrong?
925, I think.
925 Armstrong.
When you
And
see
he-
like people who snap in the pocket on like whitewash, it's like a legit
well, I definitely reckon it's
surfing
easy to snap when it's foamy and like you've lost that
Traction sort of
Traction,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like a fin slide.
Yeah.
exactly.
Surfing.
Okay, so you've got back on the wave.
Yep.
Is the pumping any different when you're on a wave? Do you find?
I just find don't pump when you're on a wave. You just let it go for a bit. Unless you're like slowing, unless the wave's faster than you are.
If it's too small though, and you like see a wave out the back that looks pretty sick, you want to make sure you maintain speed. Don't just rely on the wave too much because it can sometimes not be enough power.
I definitely reckon the best way to foil when you're pro foiling is it's like opposite of surfing. Because surfing, you're like, never catch the first wave of the set. But for foiling, catch the first wave of the set, so then you have the other 3 or 4 set waves
Yeah,
to wrap
for
back
sure.
onto.
Because you don't want to catch the biggest wave because then you're wasting all that time getting up. You want to catch a small one, pump back out to the best
big
one.
one.
Yeah,
That's like
that's the way.
Yeah.
okay. So that's pumping
101.
prone, and pumping 101. Pumping 101
That's
prone.
pumping 101. That's prone pumping 101.
What's different with dock foiling? Do you pump differently?
I reckon dock foiling, because you need to reach that stall speed really before you, like when you first hop on the thing. Oh bloody hell, it's a bit hot in here. When you first get onto the board, you need to have somewhat like close to that stall speed, and then that first pump is the key to everything. That first pump is the really deep
acceleration pumps.
acceleration pump, and then I feel like dock foiling, there's not a whole lot of efficient pumps. You don't do a whole, like maybe when you're going at the very end, when you're
trying to get to a boat far out, those last little bit you should be.
that efficient pump. But I reckon it's a whole lot more acceleration pumps the whole time during dock foiling.
And I think this is where dock foiling especially is one place where it's especially important you choose the right wing. So
Yeah.
you want high aspect wings are a bit more efficient in general,
Higher stall speeds though.
but they have a higher stall speed. So you want a big high aspect wing.
Well, I mean, but then that there's to an extent, because Max is a high aspect.
But it's not quite big.
Doesn't have
big
enough
wing.
volume. Like
You don't
chord
reckon?
is tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really weird because it has that high cadence than a lot of other foils. So like when you're pumping it, it doesn't have that nice smooth big deep pump motion.
No, it's more
it has that
holds it up.
really high pulsing cadence, and then if you don't get it to enough speed to start with, it just drops, and it gives you like no speed.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
Well, I have an Armstrong 925, which is a really small high aspect wing, which you'll never be able to dock for. I'm sure people can, but I just can never, because I can't get that I can't reach that stall speed before I.
You can't get enough speed off the dock pretty much. Yeah.
Definitely.
Another thing, like we've sort of ignored this so far on the podcast, but not actually many people do this, is the beach starting, which we can't do yet. So,
We haven't even. You've explained the story of what happened when you guys last tried.
yeah, so we're gonna
So that's why we've stepped past it.
we'll step past that for now and go to winging. What's the pumping and winging? Like, I think it's actually really important to be able to pump up your wingboard for light winds.
Yeah.
Like me and Max, yesterday we went out winging and there was actually like, how many knots? Like the average wind speed was 4 knots.
Gusts would have been like lower than 10.
Lower than 10 knot gusts. And Max was on his 4-meter sail. So
Yeah,
this
I was
one
on a
here.
4.
That's like pretty small. At the 101 and a reasonably big board.
Yeah.
And like you were getting up because your pumping technique was good.
Who's 101 were you on?
I was on the Mitchells.
Ah, yep.
Yep.
Yeah. I was getting like the tiniest propulsion. I was pretty much just using the stagnant air to like pull myself, you know?
Well, yeah.
I like rush
Explain how you do.
Wing.
For people who don't wing, explain how you
So-
do actually pump up like this motion.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah, well, it's basically just trying to capture as much wind as possible to propel you forward. And then if there's not enough wind, like we were struggling so much the other
Yeah.
day, if there's not enough wind, you sort of just need to have really good pump ability. And as you get faster and faster, obviously efficiency of the foil increases because the board's not touching the water as much, and then you can sort of get it up. And then once you're up,
Just go
Yeah.
for your life. You still need to keep just going for your life.
yeah.
But one thing, like if we're going to talk
It's
about
like-
the technique max with it, do you reckon I find myself, I pull my arms in, like I do a wing pump,
Yeah.
and I do a leg pump at the same time.
Yeah.
So I like pump the wing with my arms, kind of think of like tucking your elbows in towards your body, tucking
Yeah.
them down towards your legs,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time you're kind of doing like a squat.
Yeah.
Does that be how you kind of describe it, winging?
So does that
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, for
are you pushing the board down or are you lifting it up towards your body, your chest?
So as you pump it, you're pushing the board down and forward.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To maximize that wing speed and so it lifts.
You're sort of using, I don't know, it's a bit weird, but you're using the buoyancy of the board, sort of pushing it into the water, and then using that
Yeah.
buoyancy to sort of lift
Lift you
yourself
back
up.
up.
So
Yep.
you're pushing it down, and then it lifts you up, and then you just keep doing that until you get enough.
Is there any other disciplines of foiling where you need to, like, I reckon every discipline of foiling, pumping is one of the most
If you
important
get
things
around
you can
pumping.
learn.
Well, no,
Yeah.
okay. Well, downwinding. We haven't really talked
Yeah.
about it, but pumping with downwinding is probably the key to downwinding pumping.
It is the
Good
key, but I would say the aim of downwinding is to pump as little as
It's
possible.
Yeah, it's also the downfall, because if you focus too much on
on
that,
pumping. No, but I
Yeah.
definitely reckon if you're downwinding, you don't like go like you don't bus ride a wave, if you know what that means.
Yeah.
Just straight away. You have to just keep going on swells back and forth and just sort of make your way down. You don't just try and go straight down the coast.
Yeah.
Unless you have a fast enough wing where you can sit on one swell for like the whole way.
Do you know what I reckon we do? I reckon we don't touch downwinding until we've got Marcus with us.
That's good.
And then there we'll actually get some great insight on it.
Mm.
Because we can do it, but we're not experts.
No.
we're not king of the cup wins.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. So that's important. Arms.
Oh, yeah.
This has changed. This changed
Very
for every
true.
person though.
But okay, so I reckon for me, should we just go through and describe what we've done with our arms?
Well, I
So-
reckon, no, I feel like we describe what we do per like different types of wings. 'Cause I feel like the lower with wider wings with a lower aspect ratio, which is slow.
Yeah.
You do a whole lot more of this one of like the pumping your arms back and forth.
like-
versus
Arm forward for one pump and then arm back
Back.
for the next
So
So
one.
let me just
Yeah.
like go through our
of what you guys do.
like
Yeah.
each of our
Okay.
experience with arms.
So when I learned how to foil, I remember I saw Marcus doing it. That was like one of the first guys I saw actually pumping a lot. And he had this really good technique. Like I don't want to say beautiful technique, but it was pretty beautiful technique. And he has this, elegant technique,
technique.
where his arms would swing through. At the bottom of his swing, he does that leg pump. Then the arms swing back. At the bottom of that, he does his leg pump. So
Yeah.
essentially doing that. And so when I tried to do that,
There's
learning off the dock, and I couldn't do it.
No.
So what I did instead was like, it's similar, but it's sort of like just the brute force kind of version of it. Yeah, that a little bit. But every time I just swing my arms back and just drive them through like this,
Yeah.
like just swinging my arms up like I was punching
The air.
the sky. I don't know.
I do remember that.
And then, so once I got that, and at some point I worked out how to pump, and I didn't need my arms anymore. They were helpful, but I didn't need them. And then that's when I went to like trying to learn that technique, back and forth technique,
The elegant technique.
the elegant technique.
I definitely reckon when I started on a lower aspect wing, which was a bit bigger, the elegant technique was the easiest one to do.
Yeah.
But then I definitely reckon when you get to a higher and you have to pump faster and do everything a little bit faster, it's like almost too fast for your arms to go this way.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
turns into like sort of like a pump up and down rather than like a through.
Yeah.
And that's probably my experience with it. Definitely with the 925 it changes because once you have that set speed and you're high on your mast, you can then go back to obviously
Yeah.
the elegant technique. But then
I guess just going on to the concept, why people do the elegant technique, just to help forward momentum, keep the board going at a high speed, I guess. And yeah.
It's like probably the most efficient
drive.
technique.
Well, there's
Yeah.
another sport that does it. What something else does it with the fort. Oh, it's long jump or triple
Yeah.
jump. That's what they do it because as you release, you launch your arms forward
Yeah.
forward, and then
So you kind
it's
of
like a drive.
It drives you forward, that forwards one. But then because your arms are forward, you don't want to bring them back and go again. So you do one forwards one and one back one, which the back one's the one that's hard to get used to.
Well, yeah,
JB does the flap
yeah.
like a bird.
I mean, that's that's where you just start. And it's when you've never really looked at anyone else foiling.
Yeah.
It's a good place to start the flap, and then you sort of like tone it into the elegant technique.
yeah.
I like how we're calling it
Elegant,
the
yeah,
elegant
so am I.
technique.
And then I guess once you're on a wave, it's all really style from there.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it's like
Bit
you
of
see
steez.
people with like really high arms and then really low arms, and then like
It's sort of like surfing and what
legs.
people do different stuff with their arms when they do turns and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
I know one person puts his arms above his head and does it. Well, others like to just one arm or something like that.
yeah, like
Yeah.
once you're on the wave, whatever works for you really.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I like that talk of style. I reckon you can have a really nice style pumping.
Steez.
Yeah, you can. Like, obviously, pumping is quite a repetitive thing. It's a hard skill to learn, but once you've done it a lot, it's like pretty repetitive task. It's almost in some ways like walking or running because you're just doing it again and again and again, the same action.
yeah,
So I think it's important to focus on making it like you have a nice pump.
yeah.
Because
Once you
surfing and foiling, they're aesthetic sports. Like
Aesthetic?
aesthetic.
Aesthetic.
Sorry. They're aesthetic sports.
Yeah.
You want to look nice doing them. And I think the people who foil the best are the people who look really
The best.
like calm and
Definitely.
fluid. Okay. So is there anything else you guys want to say about pumping?
I think I'm done.
You're done?
I don't think so.
All right.
Well, yeah. That
Like
concludes.
head.
Wow, can it cut me off like that?
No, sorry.
Head position?
Sorry.
Head position.
I don't know. Like, where are you looking? Where are you looking? when you're
Looking
pumping?
forward.
You want to be looking forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to be looking down.
No.
Don't be looking back.
Oh yeah, that's actually really good. Don't look down.
Yeah.
that's a key thing. I feel like a lot of people who are starting look down and look where they're
Yeah, because
pumping.
it's like when you're driving. If you look to the right, you got to sort of lean. Right?
Oh, don't,
And
and
then-
say if you look down, you can't see the road.
No, but it's like
It
if
is
there's
true.
like oncoming lights and you like blinded, you have to look left.
Oh
Yeah,
So you can
and-
see the road.
Mm.
But then actually
You
that,
start-
that was a really bad analogy.
Yeah, that
But
was
like
worse
it's
than
like
the
I
first
guess
one.
you look where you sort of go.
So don't look down because you don't want to go down.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that because you're looking down and you sort of, and then if you see yourself like mess up maybe one pump in your whole thing, then you're like, oh no, I need quick, and like you start overthinking and everything. But if you're just looking forward and you're not even focusing, like you're focusing on like where you're going versus what you're doing,
Yeah.
it definitely becomes more of a autonomous or automotive
Quicker.
skill.
Yeah.
You learn it, you pick it up
And
quicker.
it's hard.
Because
Like-
I definitely fell, what's the word? Fell.
Down.
No, no, no. I fell like
Fell into the
I
trap?
did it. Fell into like. But there's a word. I fell victim. There we go. I fell
Yeah.
victim to doing this
Oh.
age
Yeah.
when I started.
Yeah. I think it's like bring it back to another sport I know of.
Down. I did that
I was
today.
like, I was zoned out.
we all felt.
Didn't know what you.
I think bringing it back to another sport which I'm like sort of familiar with is skiing.
Oh, yeah.
The tip that they get at skiing, the best skiers, they don't look like their next turn. They don't look the second turn. They look the fifth turn in front. Or something like they look quite
Yeah,
far
yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
Where the beginner skier is looking at the tip of their ski tips. So obviously as you begin, you're probably going to be looking down, but the sooner you learn to not look down.
Well, yeah. Well,
better.
sorry to cut you off, but with surfing as well, I've heard like the best surfers, like
Yeah.
Kelly Slater explain how you put where your head looks is where you're going. So
Yeah.
so you're doing a turn, you look up where you want to hit the thing, and then as you're hitting it, you look straight back down. So then you're going back
Yeah.
down off that.
Yeah, you're always looking into the future. What
Yeah.
you're gonna do. You want to
looking
be
ahead.
Yeah. You don't want to be looking at what.
You're doing right
you're
now.
doing
You're
right
looking what you're doing next.
Like when you do you see big wrap turns. We'll show like a video, I guess. I don't know.
You see where the
like
eyes
a
are.
big
where the
wrap
head is.
carve. Their eyes are facing directly into the pocket where they just got to draw out that turn.
Mm.
And then once they're in that pocket, they're looking down the line just to get that board.
Mm.
And then everything follows from there, I guess.
Yeah. All right. I reckon that's probably all we've got to say for pumping.